Have you ever seen someone you love, someone who has always played by the rules, wake up in a cold sweat at 1 in the morning, night after night? That was my mother. And the reason for her terror? A single piece of paper from our homeowners association. It was an official letter demanding they pay a fine of $25,000 or tear the brand new, hurricane-proof roof off their house. The HOA thought they had my parents trapped. They thought they were just another easy target. They had no idea they had just declared war on my father. If you believe that no one should be bullied in their own home, and that justice, when it comes, is one of the sweetest tastes in the world, then do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notification. You're part of the jury on this channel, and trust me, you'll want to hear the verdict in today's story. Like this video, and let's dive into how a corrupt HOA's greed led to its own spectacular downfall. It all started, as so many stories in Florida do, with a hurricane. A few months back, Hurricanes Ian and Nicole had ripped through the state in a brutal 1-2 punch, and my parents' neighborhood was right in the path. They were lucky, all things considered. The house stood strong. Nobody was hurt, but the storms left their scars. Water had seeped through the roof, staining the ceilings and threatening the bones of the house. Outside, the roof looked like a dog had been chewing on it. Shingles torn away, debris embedded in the wood. It was a mess. But this is where my dad, Dave, shines. Growing up, he was like a living, breathing incarnation of the personal finance subreddit. Every penny had a purpose, every investment was weighed, and every decision was made with the long-term future in mind. Now in his 60s, after a lifetime of discipline and smart choices, he had finally reached a level of financial security he liked to call "fuck you money." It wasn't about being flashy, it was about having the freedom to make the right choice, not just the cheap one. So when the insurance check came through for the roof damage, he didn't just want to patch it up. He wanted to upgrade. He wanted to fortify. He and my mom spent weeks researching, and they landed on the perfect solution: a modern, standing seam metal roof. This wasn't some flimsy, corrugated tin shack roof from the 1950s. This was a state-of-the-art system. It was engineered to withstand hurricane-force winds. It was more energy efficient, and its sleek design would actually increase the value of their home. It was a win-win-win, an investment in safety, savings, and security. They were genuinely excited. But my mom, Carol, bless her heart, is a stickler for the rules. She's the type of person who reads the entire instruction manual before plugging in a new toaster. So before signing any contracts, she pulled out the heavy, 3-ring binder with the faded gold embossed title, Heron's Landing Homeowners Association Covenants and Bylaws. And that's when they found it. Buried in a document dated 1989 was a single sentence: "Metal roofs are prohibited in this neighborhood." You could almost smell the dust coming off the page. The rule was clearly written with those old, ugly, rust-prone tin roofs in mind, not the architectural marvels they were considering. My dad scoffed, but Mom insisted. "We have to do this the right way," she said. So they did. They called the HOA. They explained the situation, the hurricane, the outdated bylaw, the benefits of the new roofing technology. The person on the other end was friendly enough. "Oh, that's interesting," they said. "You're not the first to ask. We'll look into amending that bylaw." That sounded promising. And besides, every roofing contractor in the state was swamped. The earliest anyone could even start work was a few months out. They had time, so they waited. A few weeks went by. Nothing. They called again. "We're still looking into it," came the reply. A little less friendly this time. Another few weeks. Silent. After 2 months of being given the runaround, with the endless blue crinkle of the tarp on their roof serving as a constant reminder of their vulnerability, my dad made the call. "We're doing it," he told my mom. "The neighborhood is on our side. Everyone saw what the storm did. No reasonable person would stop us from protecting our home." He was right. Neighbors would stop by and compliment the choice, saying they were thinking of doing the same. The sense of community was strong. The roofers came and, over the course of a few days, installed a beautiful charcoal gray metal roof with sleek, interlocking panels. It looked incredible. It was a symbol of recovery, of building back stronger. For a moment, there was peace. And then, we discovered the true, rotten nature of their HOA. You see, the neighborhood has this lovely brick entrance sign. It says "Welcome to Howren's Landing" in elegant lettering. It's the first thing you see when you drive in. The hurricane had taken a chunk out of it, leaving a jagged scar on their pristine welcome. The HOA, it turned out, was strapped for cash. Between other repairs and residents who were behind on dues because of the storm, their coffers were nearly empty. They couldn't afford to fix their own sign. And that's when some power-tripping prick on the board had a bright idea. Instead of managing their budget, why not generate new income? Why not hunt for violations and levy the most outrageous fines they could legally justify? And my parents' brand new, beautiful roof was target number 1. The letter arrived on a Tuesday in a crisp white envelope tucked right between the electric bill and a coupon mailer. It was formal, cold, and brutal. It cited the 1989 bylaw. It declared them in gross violation. It demanded they remove the roof immediately. And it imposed a fine of $25,000. I got the call from my mom that night. Her voice was trembling. My mother, the rule follower, the kindest, most non-confrontational person I know, was being painted as a delinquent. The sheer injustice of it was eating her alive. "They want us to tear it all down," she whispered. $25,000. We can't. How can they do this? I felt a surge of white-hot rage, mixed with a sickening feeling of helplessness. Being hundreds of miles away, my mom started having trouble sleeping. She'd wake up at 1 a.m., her mind racing, just replaying the condescending words in the letter, over and over. She was worried sick, living in a state of constant, low-grade terror in her own home. My dad's reaction was different. He listened to my mom, his face like stone. He read the letter twice. Then he slowly folded it, perfectly in half, then in half again, making sharp, deliberate creases. He placed the small, thick rectangle on the counter and looked at my mom's worried face. My dad is an ex-Navy logistics officer. He spent 30 years negotiating multi-million-dollar defense contracts. He understands leverage, rules of engagement, and the precise moment when diplomacy fails and a show of force is required. He looked down at his own hands, flexed his 60-year-old knuckles, and a slow, cold grin spread across his face. It wasn't a happy grin. It was a predator's grin. He said quietly, "Oh, you little shits want to play, do ya?" The game was on. The HOA thought they were playing checkers with a sweet old lady. They were about to find out they were playing 4D chess with a grandmaster who had just been deeply, personally offended. What followed was a brilliant, two-pronged attack. My parents divided and conquered. Dad handled the law. Mom handled the people. Dad's first call was to the roofing company. He explained the situation, the fine, the outdated bylaw. The contracting officer on the other end didn't even sound surprised. He just sighed and said, "Sir, we deal with this all the time. These HOAs get run by petty tyrants who don't read past their own outdated rules. Give me a day." The next day, a package arrived at my parents' house. It contained letters of accreditation for their specific type of metal roof, detailing its energy efficiency ratings. But the real treasure was inside. Copies of past legal cases, court precedents from all over Florida, where homeowners with these exact roofs had been challenged by their HOAs and won. In every single case, the court had ruled that the roof qualified as an eco-friendly improvement. And that's when my dad found the silver bullet. A Florida state statute, a law that explicitly states that no homeowners association, no local ordinance, nothing can be used to prevent a homeowner from making energy-efficient, eco-friendly improvements to their private property. A state law that completely and utterly superseded their dusty, 40-year-old bylaw. The HOA didn't just have a weak case, they had no case. And the precedents showed that in these situations, the HOA was often forced to pay the homeowners legal fees. My dad laid all the documents on the kitchen table. The evidence was ironclad. This was the legal nuke. Meanwhile, my mom, despite her anxiety, had been given her own mission. She was always more social, better at connecting with people. While my dad was on the phone with lawyers and contractors, my mom was on the sidewalk. She went for walks, but with a purpose. She talked to Mrs. Gable next door while she was gardening. She caught up with the Johnsons while they were getting their mail. She wasn't complaining, she was informed. She'd say, "Did you hear what the HOA is trying to do?" After that awful storm, she would explain their situation calmly, and she listened. She heard story after story of the board's other petty tyrannies. Fines for a garbage can left out an hour too long, nasty letters about the length of someone's grass. It turned out, popular opinion wasn't just on their side. The entire neighborhood was a powder keg of resentment, just waiting for a spark. The HOA hadn't just made an enemy of my parents, they had made an enemy of everyone. A few weeks later, the HOA called what they probably imagined would be a public execution, a burn them at the stake meeting, where my parents would be given a few minutes to grovel. Before the board would publicly shame them and vote to enforce the fine, they sent out notices, expecting a small, quiet meeting. They had no idea what my mother had been doing. She had convinced a vast majority of the homeowners, dozens of them, to attend. The night of the meeting, the community hall was packed. People were standing along the walls, the fluorescent lights humming over a room, buzzing with tension. The HOA board members, sitting at a long table at the front, looked confused, then annoyed by the massive turnout. They clearly expected to make an example of my parents in front of an empty room. Instead, they were facing a jury of the entire neighborhood. The head of the HOA, a man named Mr. Henderson, whose polo shirt was always stretched a little too tight over his gut, called the meeting to order. He droned on about rules and regulations, then finally called my parents up to defend their unauthorized construction. My dad gave my mom's hand a squeeze. This was her stage. My mom, Carol, who had been waking up in terror just weeks before, walked to the podium. She looked calm, poised, and utterly resolute. She looked out at the familiar faces in the crowd, her friends and neighbors, and took a deep breath. "Good evening," she began, her voice clear and steady. "We're here tonight because the board has fined us $25,000 and demanded we tear down our new roof. They claim they have the authority to do this." Mr. Henderson smirked. "We do," he interrupted, his voice dripping with condescension. "We have a 40-year-old bylaw that says so. It's right here in the rules." My mom smiled. It was a sweet, gentle, devastating smile. "You do have that," she agreed pleasantly. "But I have something better. I have state law on my side. And state law supersedes your bylaw." A murmur went through the crowd. Mr. Henderson's smirk faltered. Mom continued, "Florida Statute 16304 states that an HOA cannot prohibit the installation of energy-efficient improvements. Our new roof has been certified as a passive solar collection system, which qualifies as an eco-friendly, energy-efficient improvement." She then pulled out the manila folder my dad had prepared. She held up the letters of accreditation. She held up the court precedents. "Here are several past cases," she said, her voice ringing with authority, "where courts have determined that this exact product is protected under state law, and in every one of these cases, the HOA was forced to cover all legal fees for the homeowner when they tried to fight it." She placed the stack of papers on the podium with a soft, definitive thud that echoed in the silent room. You could see the blood drain from the board members' faces. They knew they were broke. The very reason they were levying this fine was because they couldn't afford to fix a sign. The idea of paying for my parents' lawyer was a death sentence. They were trapped, and they knew it. Mr. Henderson stared at her, his jaw tight with fury. He growled, "Is that all?" My mom's smile widened. She turned up the sweetness to 11. "No," she said, her voice as pleasant as ever. "Actually, there's one more thing." She paused, letting the tension hang in the air. "I was rereading the bylaws myself," she said, "and I noticed a fascinating little rule on page 12. It says that at any official HOA meeting, with a majority of homeowners present, A motion can be made to impeach and remove any and all board members, and to immediately elect their replacements. She glanced around the packed room, making eye contact with the dozens of neighbors she had personally invited. They were all there. The majority was present. The board members froze. Their eyes darted around the room, finally understanding the scale of the trap they had walked into. This wasn't a hearing, it was a coup. My mom looked directly at Mr. Henderson, her sweet smile never wavering. I moved to impeach Mr. Henderson and the entire current board for fiscal mismanagement and harassment of residents. And I nominate my husband, Dave, and Mrs. Gable from down the street to the new board. She then rattled off a list of other respected homeowners in the room. All in favor? The room erupted. A sea of hands shot into the air. It wasn't even a vote. It was an uprising. It was a unanimous, thunderous. The board was stunned into silence. They were fired. Publicly. Humiliatingly. Powerless. And just like that, it was over. The old corrupt board was dissolved. A new one was elected on the spot, with my parents and their neighbors at the helm. In the weeks that followed, the change was immediate. The very first motion of the new HOA was to formally strike the 1989 rule and officially permit modern metal roofs. My dad, using his contract negotiation skills, found a local mason to repair the Heron's Landing entrance sign for a fraction of what the old board had claimed it would cost. He even did some of the prep work himself. My mom sleeps through the night now. The fear is gone, replaced by a quiet confidence I haven't seen in her in years. They didn't just win a fight over a roof. They took a stand against petty bullies who mistake rules for power. They reminded a community that the HOA is supposed to work for the homeowners, not the other way around. The real justice wasn't just in keeping their roof. It was in dismantling the very system that had tried to hurt them and replacing it with something better, for everyone. They didn't just defend their home. They reclaimed their entire neighborhood. It's a powerful reminder, isn't it? That sometimes, the most effective way to fight an unjust system isn't to break the rules, but to know them better than your opponent, and to use them to hold power accountable. Justice, in this case, wasn't just served. It was built. From the ground up, just like that new metal roof. What's the most satisfying story of justice you've ever witnessed or been a part of? I want to hear about it. Drop your story in the comments below, because sharing these moments is how we all learn to stand up for ourselves. If you enjoyed seeing this petty HOA get exactly what it deserved, please hit that like button, subscribe for more stories of epic revenge and vindication, and share this video with someone who would appreciate it. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.